Today's shooting is what Baton Rouge police have feared most. It comes amid threats and protests, of course, sparked by the Alton Sterling shooting a week and a half ago. CNN's Polo Sandoval joins me now from CNN Center in Atlanta. So, Polo, what do we know exactly about the shootings that took place?
Well, Anderson, as you mentioned, there are still a lot of questions here, but this is what we do know after speaking to authorities and to several sources there on the ground, that this shooting initially happened there on Airline Highway, which, if you look at a map, it's essentially the highway that splits Baton Rouge geographically. Officers there engaged an individual with a rifle, according to authorities, and that's when the suspect was shot and killed. But of course, in the long run, now we do know that at least six officers were attacked, 3 of them fatally, and 3 others still wounded in the hospital at this point. We are told that there are several reports that have surfaced suggesting that these officers may have been called out there purposely to potentially be targeted. This is one of several theories that investigators are working with, but then on the other side here, as you mentioned, there is at least one witness that has come forward saying that he reported that there was a man lying on the ground there at the scene even before officers arrived, suggesting that there could have been a shooting that these officers were responding to when things turned extremely violent here. So again, these are 2 very different outcomes here, but ultimately what we do have to remember here, we now have at least those 3 officers killed amid that growing tension that we have seen nationwide, sweeping several cities. And finally, Anderson, I could tell you, after just returning from Baton Rouge, when we were there to cover the funeral for Alton Sterling, the man who was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police officers about a week and a half ago, there was tension in the air. People were concerned about law enforcement to the extent that they were stopping by the police department and asking police officers to be extra careful and to keep their head on the swivel as they went on the beat, Anderson.
That's right. I mean, Baton Rouge police have been on the receiving end of what they consider credible threats over the past week or so.
At least 2 of them, Anderson. We did report on 2 of them, one of which was a break-in at a pawn shop in which several suspects, at least 3 of them, young men, reportedly stole about 8 handguns. One of them, according to police, claimed that he planned to target police officers using those stolen handguns. Now, I should mention, though, after being on the ground and speaking to several individuals and obtaining some information, there is at least some details here that are casting, or at least we are a bit skeptical of some of those reports, but ultimately that is what authorities used on the ground to be able to explain a major police presence that we witnessed at some of these demonstrations, some of which, Anderson, actually took place on that very highway that is now considered a massive crime scene.
All right, Polo Sandoval, I appreciate the update. We'll continue to check in with you. I want to bring in Brady Vansell. He says he witnessed a shooting and told our affiliate WAFB that shots were being fired even before police arrived. He also says he locked eyes with the shooter. He joins us by phone. Brady, if you can take us through from the beginning, what did you see? What did you hear?
Well, a little bit after 8:30 a.m. this morning, I was pulling up to a job over here off the street behind, the crime scene and the shooting, to come over here and, do my normal day of work. Well, when we pulled up in the driveway, I heard a bunch of ruckus, a bunch of loud noises, what, assumed was maybe gunshots, or after about the 20 to 25th shot, okay, well, maybe it's someone working over there. So I figured, let me go take a better look to make sure it's okay, because there was no pattern in the sound of the shot. So, it was a little bizarre. So when I walked around the corner down the street, I walked up the street maybe 30 yards, and I walked around a little corner by a fence. And when I looked off in the far, about 70, 80 yards from me, was a man lying on the ground. He was by himself. There wasn't nobody chasing him. There wasn't nobody behind him or from him. And he was a civilian because he was in red clothes. He had different color clothes on than a uniform. I was kind of in shock, in awe of the situation, trying to figure out what I was looking at that second. But by the time my mind clicked back to what was really going on, I looked to my right, and there was a man dressed in all black with a mask on and a rifle in his arms, running towards me away from the body. And when he got about 30 yards from me, 35, 40 yards from me, he realized, okay, well, I guess he looked up and he saw me. We stopped. I froze. He froze for a second. And then he turned around and ran in the opposite direction. At the same time, I turned around and ran in the opposite direction. And during that time, there were still shots being fired from multiple handguns, I mean, I could hear the police officers coming. I can hear their sirens on Airline Highway around the corner. But at that time, when I was looking into the parking lot, there was nobody but a man lying on the ground, and a man running with the gun away from that man lying on the ground. And there wasn't officers on the scene until after I had got back in the house, locked all the doors, and then watched through the windows and watched for the cops to then pull into the parking lot and try to contain the situation.
Okay, so Brady, let me just walk you through this again. I just want to ask you about a couple of details and only talk to what you actually know, you saw, and you may not be able to answer some of them, and that's totally fine. So you said this was around 8:30 a.m., is that correct?
A little bit after, maybe between 8:30 and 9 o'clock.
Okay. And the man you saw laying on the ground, where was he laying on the ground?
Directly behind Party City, next to the dumpster. He was the parking lot was completely empty. There was nobody in the parking lot other than the gunman, and he was lying right behind the store.
And what did he look like, the man laying on the ground? Did you see
couldn't
blood?
make it out.
Did you see him moving?
I was in shock at the moment. All I could see was red clothes and a body lying. That was all I could make out of it. Because by the time I had started to realize what I was looking at, was by the time I looked over and saw someone else running in my direction.
Okay, this may be a dumb question, but you're describing him as a body. How do you know he was dead or a body as opposed to somebody just sleeping?
Well, I mean, that many gunfires, that many gunshots, and then, in that type of situation, anybody in that right mind would know. Okay, well, this is a still body back here lying on the ground.
Okay.
In the middle of a parking lot. No one would just randomly sleep, right in the middle of a parking lot next to a dumpster. And then with the man running away with a rifle in his arms, just completely led me to assume or believe that this was, a body laying on the ground, because there was no movement whatsoever. He was not moving at all. He was
and you said the man on the ground. You said the man on the ground was wearing a red shirt, red pants.
Red shirt, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, and the gunman. You said was wearing all black with a mask. What kind of a mask? Do you remember?
Possibly a ski mask or just a hunting mask or something of that sort. It wasn't a Halloween mask or any of that. It was an actual, mask. I don't know the motive behind this. I can't really come up with my own assumptions on the matter, but from what it looks like, it was a planned attack. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it was on the police officers, but I think it was a planned attack, being that he had a mask and an assault rifle on his person. I mean, that's my only reasonable explanation.
Did you get a look, Brady? Okay, Brady, did you get a look at the rifle? What kind of a rifle it was?
I did not get a look at the rifle. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen the rifle, and that it was a rifle. And from the sounds of it, I assumed it was an AR, semi-automatic.
Okay,
but
so
I couldn't make out.
Brady, Brady, you also said that you then heard, as you started to leave, you locked eyes with the person. You said, I think you said that as you were leaving, there was more shooting. It sounded like handguns, but you were saying that was before police arrived. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. As the first second I pulled up into the driveway, there was different guns being shot off rapidly. Back to back and forth. So, 3 shots here, and then
so you're
2
saying
shots from another gun, and you can tell that they were different guns. So, I mean, there was definitely.
So you're saying before you actually saw the man laying on the ground. You're saying before you actually saw even the man lying on the ground, the shots you heard, you felt were from multiple firearms.
No, yes, sir. They were for sure.
Okay. So it's okay. And then when you left, you heard police coming. Did you hear any more shots before police arrived? Because you said police got there once you were already inside. As you were leaving, did you hear any more shots as the man was running away?
When I got back in the house, I had heard more gunfire over and over, rapid gunfire just going off back to back to back from the same gun. What it sounded like the same gun. Maybe he was hiding off in the distance, and he was firing towards the police, or I have no idea, but I did hear more gunshots, and
that was once police were on the scene.
I guess that was when they were pulling up. They could have been pulling up at the moment,
Right.
that I was going inside, or that the man had turned around and ran back in their direction.
Well, Brady, I appreciate you talking to us. I know it's a chaotic and a confusing situation. I appreciate you telling us what you know. I appreciate it. Brady Vansell. President Obama has just released a statement on the shooting. We may not yet know the motives for this attack, he said, but I want to be clear. There's no justification for violence against law enforcement, none. These attacks are the work of cowards who speak for no one. They right no wrongs. They advance no causes. The officers in Baton Rouge, the officers in Dallas, they were our fellow Americans, part of our community, part of our country, with people who loved and needed them and who need us now, all of us, to be at our best. We also heard that this afternoon, the president placed separate phone calls to the Louisiana governor, John Bel Edwards, and Baton Rouge Mayor Kip Holden to hear the latest on the investigation. The president pledged any support from the federal government that is needed by local authorities. Joining me now, our CNN law enforcement analyst, Art Roderick, a former assistant director to the U.S. Marshals, and Bob Reed, a former sheriff for Cuyahoga County in Ohio. Appreciate both of you being with us. Art, let's start off with you. Obviously, I mean, this witness, again, this is one single witness,
right.
and we all know witness testimony is, difficult to sometimes follow at best.
Right.
So, given what the witness said, what's your sense of what's happening?
My sense of it, he's viewing it from his perspective, obviously. I mean, he was a good witness. He had a lot of details. But I don't think he actually knew when law enforcement showed up. There's a lot of conflicting information coming out, as generally does. I think at this point, usually 5-6 hours into this, we would have a pretty good idea as to what's going on. The thing that concerns me here is we've got to get to the reason why as quickly as possible, so that if there's an alert that's got to be put out to law enforcement nationwide, then that information has got to get out as soon as we can get it.
Right. What we don't know, it seems like at this point, was this
Right.
some sort of dealings between two people, one with a long rifle wearing black, one who was lying, ended up dead, and then the police come upon it, or was this something else specifically targeting police? At this point, we don't know.
Sure, this could be a robbery gone bad or a drug deal gone bad, or, as bizarre as it may sound, is their killing of a civilian to get police to come to the area. If it's
These are all possibilities.
Yeah, sure, it's all possibilities. If it was a coordinated ambush situation.
In a case like this, I mean, you have 3 officers confirmed dead. I believe 2 are from the Baton Rouge Police Department. I think 1 is from the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Department. Others in surgery and wounded. How chaotic? I mean, this is an incredibly chaotic scene for law. This is the worst possible situation.
This is, and of course, again, we don't know the reason why this occurred, but this is not an average day in the life of any police officer. When you have 3 officers down, another 3 or 4 or 5 wounded, this is an absolute worst case scenario, especially in this city. This police department is stressed out already as it is. And I know a lot of their federal partners and a lot of the state and local partners are coming in to assist them. I know the U.S. Marshals are now providing security around the police department, and they're also assisting with the investigation when it comes to I believe they found a phone on the dead individual, and they're trying to track information out of that phone.
But what police have said, I mean, they put out very scant information.
Yes.
Maybe they have very scant information, but they're basically appealing to the public's help if people have seen anything, because they don't know, frankly, if they believe it's possible there are at least 2 other suspects out there, but those are early reports, again, unclear.
I'm confident they're keeping the identity of the suspect confidential right now for specific reasons of law enforcement, because they want to do
as much
raid
checking
in the house or whatever. But Art is right. We need to know right away if it's an ambush situation for law enforcement all over this nation, and in Cleveland specifically, and what direction we're taking with it.
We've got to take a quick break. I appreciate both of you being with us. You are watching Breaking News coverage. We'll be right back.